Let's get started. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and yeah, here we are again. Round 2 of Tuchel doesn't know what the hell he's doing. I don't get it. This was the game where we should have turned around our fortunes. You look back whenever we had our first initial bad run earlier on this season. You know, we had the bad performance against Villa in the Carabao Cup, barely won on penalties, disappointing against Man City, lost, disappointing against Juve, lost. But then we had the Southampton game where we turned it around a little bit. It was a bit better, and then we just run over Malmo because they're not an issue. This should have been the Malmo game. This should have been the game where we say, all right, let's turn it around, let's figure things out, get our momentum, and then Tuchel says, no, 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 no. Are you kidding me? I like us being mediocre. I like us looking like one of the worst teams in England. I like not winning games. Not winning is fun for me. At least that's what I assume he's doing. I mean, I know people like to defend him. People like to go, no, no, it's the players. The players have to put out a good performance. I agree. 100% wholehearted, totally agree with that sentiment. However, Tuchel has to put out the players. Tuchel has to be the one to say, all right, let's pick our strongest starting lineup. We need to win this game to go through top of the group to avoid teams like Bayern and Real Madrid. Let's make sure we get the job done. But what does he do? No, let's go with Saul at left back. Let's go with Sarr. Let's have Barkley be one of the two defensive midfielders. That seems fine to me. That seems like a strong lineup. And it doesn't stop there. He goes with Christensen in the center of a back three. Normally, earlier this season would have been fine. He's not been in good form recently. He's not been playing well. And you stick him there alongside an Azpilicueta that's hardly played recently, so he's going to be a bit rusty, and Sarr, who is also rusty but also is not a good defender, and you've got a back line that's bound to give up goals. With Kepa in goal, I'll defend him in a bit, but that's not a back line that's set up to keep a clean sheet, get the job done defensively. That's a back line that's going to hurt you. And then you throw Saul at left back, who I will talk about later because I'm thinking an early loan exit should be on the hands. And then Callum Hudson-Odoi on the right side. Not a bad right wing back, not a defensive right wing back though. So you've got this back line that doesn't defend well, with a keeper that's normally prone for giving up goals, a left wing back that's one of our worst players right now, a right wing back that's more of a wing than an actual wing back, and then you've got James, not bad choice in the midfield, and Barkley. How would we not give up 3 goals this game? How would we not? Honestly, it should have been more. It should have been 7, based on the run of play and based on how bad we were defending today. But thankfully, one, like I said, I'll talk about Kepa in a second, but Kepa kept us in it, and also Zenit were not finishing their chances very well. It should have been 7-3 today. But we got lucky and managed to come away with a draw. But then again, that's not really lucky because in the league, it's like, okay, well, we came away with 1 point away from home. We'll take it, after that horrid display, but we needed to win today. Juventus was not going to draw or lose against Malmo. It was not going to happen. It was going to take something crazy like Juventus player getting sent off in the first minute, or something really crazy where Juventus just decides, we're just not going to play. They're going to win that game because they know it's the only chance they have is for us to screw up, which we did. So yeah, getting a draw today, I would call it lucky, except for the fact that it's not lucky, because now we're in second place, and now we have a chance of facing Bayern or Real Madrid in the first round. In the round of 16, we could be out. Defending champions, and again, what are we doing? We're screwing ourselves over. Just like what happened under Martinez. End up in the Europa League. Here, we're going to go out in the first round of the 16 because we're probably going to get Bayern or Real Madrid, because we've put ourselves in that position. So, anyways, let's talk about, I guess, the players now, because I could go on and on about Tuchel and what a terrible decision he made with all of these stuff. I could go on forever, and I'm at that point again where I don't trust him anymore. It's so funny how quickly that can happen, but twice now I've gone from he's a genius, and then in the next few games he's proved why he's not a genius. Very, very quickly for me. So I just need to stop thinking he's a genius, because he's not. He has things figured out, and then all of a sudden we get on this high horse, and then we just don't know what we're doing anymore. I don't know why that happens, but it does. It's what Tuchel does, and that's where we are. Kepa, start with him in goal. Like I said, this was one I'm looking at this thinking, why? Why would you do this? But to be fair, he's the only player out of everybody that I looked at on the pitch and said, why him? Kepa was the only one out of all those players that I actually thought put in a decent performance today. The header maybe could have, been a bit more aware. It's a typical Kepa goal to give up, where the header comes in and he's planted, so he doesn't have the ability to move, even though it's kind of right there. But it's still a point-blank header, unguarded completely. So it's hard to fully blame him. It's a blame that goes all around. Second goal. What was the second goal? I've already forgotten because I was so pissed off while I was watching it. What happened for the second one? I remember it was another through ball. It was just, bad defending. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the through ball. The guy took it around Kepa. I mean, it's a one-on-one situation. It's actually the second one he had to face, and not the last one either. So the fact that he had to face, I think, 3 one-on-one situations and only one of them went in, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. I think that's actually a pretty good percentage for something like a one-on-one chance. And then the third goal, I mean, there's nothing he could have done for that. That was just brilliant strike from the top of the box that nobody closed down because everybody's standing and watching like a bunch of morons. So I'm not going to blame him for that, because it was very well struck, it was very well placed, and that's not going to be stopped by most keepers. Maybe some of the top keepers, and he's not there. He's very average keeper. So the performance he put on today was not just an average keeper. He did do some fantastic stuff, made some good saves. Maybe should have done a bit better for the first one, but everything else that I saw was really good. So, shocking to be saying that about a keeper that gave up 3, but they were not the typical Kepa goals that I'm used to seeing him give up. In the back line, Azpilicueta, like I said, he looked rusty. He was not at the top of his game today. There were several moments where he looked slow. He looked just a little panicked with the ball. It didn't really seem like he knew what he was doing. And that just comes down to Tuchel's not really been playing him. He's not really been giving him much time, so I'm not surprised that he's not putting in a 100% Azpilicueta performance. And that just comes down to, I mean, it's the same thing that happened under Lampard, too. There's a point where he started playing James more than Azpilicueta and started freezing Azpilicueta out of the team a little bit, thinking, oh, well, James is taking this, right? And then you bring Azpilicueta back in. He's still a good player because you need him, but then he's a bit older, so he's not going to give you the same performance that you're used to seeing from him because he's not had time to play. So, yeah, I hope he can get back to his best, because, I mean, that's what we need right now after these past 2 games of giving up 3 goals. We need defenders. We need a defense that's going to do the job, and he's typically one that does the job well. It's just, again, looked rusty. Christensen, like I said, earlier in the season, I would have been ecstatic to see Christensen in the lineup because he was a good defender earlier this season, but he's dropped off. Very, very severely dropped off. And the past 2 games have been a sure sign that he's back to the same Christensen that I hated seeing when Lampard was here. Because he's just gotten no sense of where to be. That first goal, totally him, in my opinion. Okay, not totally him. Need to rephrase. I'm very much in a mindset of like everything is hyperbole because I'm super pissed. So I need to realize, keep it cooler. This is a review, not an event session as much as I want it to be. But yeah, I mean, that first goal, Kepa should do better. Sarr maybe should read it a bit better. But Christensen, the one that doesn't go. He's the one that literally stands and watches as a guy makes a run behind him to sneak in and get the free header. Sarr had his own man, so you could say he could read that a bit better and get in front of him. But what is Christensen doing? He's standing and watching. He's not making a play on it. He's not even attempting to try to maybe at least get in front of the defender so he doesn't see it clearly when it comes through. He just stands and watches it go over his head right onto the defender, or onto the attacker, and that's it. Done. Done and dusted. And it's not the only time. The through ball, also him. He's dropping, and then ball gets played, then steps, and now he's beat. How about you step first and then drop? That way you're not dropping with him and then waiting for the ball to be played, and then waiting, and then ball gets played, then you step. No, you got to read that situation. You've got to read that as soon as it starts to come back, you got to step up and go for the ball. And then after he's played it, then you have enough time because likely he has a different angle. It's not going to be as clean of a ball, or the guy's probably straight offside. But the fact that he took forever to make that initial step, and then when he does, it's after the ball's already been played. I mean, it's just dumb defending, and it leaves the guy wide open. And throughout most of the game, it was just hit and miss. Sometimes he'd be good, sometimes he'd be solid in the air. He'd win the ball, and then other times he's just nowhere to be seen. He's losing out on challenges. He's getting beat for strength, beat for pace. It's just another example of why I don't think Christensen is the defender that everybody think he is. If that makes sense. I mean, I remember a lot of talk fairly early on in his Chelsea career when a lot of Chelsea fans were like, oh, he's the next John Terry. These are the types of performances that convinces me he's not. He's not intelligent enough to be a defender like Terry or like Silva. He doesn't have the same smarts for the game, the same smarts for positioning and where to what's the word I'm looking for? Not positioning, but just essentially where to be. That spatial awareness, where to be, where the ball is, where the attacker is. He doesn't have that idea of what he's doing. And in games like this, where everybody's kind of a little all over the place, these are the games where it's very hectic and it's very difficult for him because he doesn't deal well with those situations. He's not a calm-headed defender that can just slow things down and get everybody organized. And that's just where he is right now. Can he get there? Maybe. I mean, he's got a lot of work to do, but he can still try. But right now, he's not that type of defender, and that's what we need in the middle of a back three. And then Sarr is just not a defender. He's just not. He's so bad on positioning, on his tackling's okay, I guess. But I don't know. It's just there's so much that goes into defending outside of tackling. And because that's the one thing that people notice more about defenders, like Van Dijk, for instance. Van Dijk's a great tackler, and he's got a lot of strength and speed, so he can make up for any mistakes that he makes. And that's why people think he's one of the best defenders. But if you actually watch him, if you watch him defend, if you watch his positioning, if you watch him kind of as the play is happening around him, he's really not a good defender. He's just a good athlete that tackles well, and that's what saved him several times. Sarr is not a good athlete. He doesn't really have a whole lot of pace from what I saw today. Strength, maybe a little bit. He won a couple in the air that were important, but he just has no sense of what he's doing, and especially with him and Saul on the left side, neither of them really had an idea of what they were doing. So there were several times when it's just so open on that side because Saul stepped up, Sarr has no idea what's behind him, and it's just a huge mix-up, and there probably are two worst players right now. And that's including Barkley. They're worse than Barkley, if I'm being honest. And they were on the left side together. It's kind of like God, who was it? Because there were times, these were several years ago, I can remember, where there was like somebody on the left side. I think it was when Alonso was our left back, when we tried to do a back four with him at one point. He was the left back, and the other defender that was over there was somebody that wasn't as good as the defender. I think it was like Alonso and Christensen, and then like we had, I think like Zuma and Azpilicueta on this side, and so it was like these two are good defenders, these two are not, and it showed several times. They just come down our left side and dominate that side because Alonso and Christensen couldn't handle it, and that's how I felt today. Just they kept coming down that left side because they had so much pace and so much time to make things happen, and that's what hurt us several times. It's what created so many chances for them. So yeah, Sarr's not going to cut it. And again, the fact that we've sold Zuma, we've sold Tomori, we loaned out or we sold Gahey, all these players that would have been better options than Sarr, would have given us more than Sarr, and we're stuck with Sarr because we've sold all these players. And maybe they wanted to force a move. That's, if that's the case, we should have done more to appease them. That's on the coaches. But I'm looking at those three, especially, watching Gahey and Zuma at Palace and West Ham. Both of them are playing well. Both of them are doing pretty well. Tomori, I watched him for Milan yesterday, did okay, had the one bad mistake that led to their loss. But, I mean, all three of them are playing very well at their clubs, and meanwhile we've got Christensen and Sarr, both of which are not getting the job done. Yes, when we have Chalaba, Silva, and Rudiger, and even Aspilicueta, when those four are fit and healthy, that's a good back. Any of those could make a good back three. But we don't have anything outside of that. The other two that are backups are far worse, right now at least, for Christensen's sake, far worse than anything we would have had if Zuma or if Gehi or if Tamori had stayed and been our backup there. So that's just where we are in our back line. Wingbacks wise, Saul, I'll try to keep this rant short because I don't have a whole lot of time to. I have like a 30-minute, limit on the recording. So he is Bakayoko, but slightly worse because Bakayoko at least had some physical attributes. Saul doesn't even have that. He's just bad. He's just a bad player. Maybe he's good in La Liga, but that's because La Liga isn't as tough as Premier League. It's not as physically demanding as the Premier League. So, yeah, maybe this style of jogging around and, not working hard and just sort of being there, maybe that works in La Liga, but in the Premier League, it's not going to. And when you're facing a team like Zenit that just busts it all game, yeah, you're going to look stupid, and he did for most of the game. And I kept seeing all this stuff like, oh, Saul, maybe he'll be better at left wing back. He's played there before. Tuchel can use him as an option since Chilwell's hurt, and he'll be better there. No, it doesn't have anything to do with his positioning. It doesn't matter where on the field he plays. He's just a bad player. He's lazy. He's not physically capable. And on the ball, his finishing seems decent. He knows how to strike a ball. But the problem is he never gets the ball within striking distance because anytime he takes a touch, it's always so slow that he's surrounded by two defenders before he can get back to it. So he's got nothing to his game. So he needs to go back to Atletico. That's a loan thing that needs to just be cut off in January and go get somebody else. Either bring Gallagher back, bring Emerson back, do something. But he does not need to be at this club anymore because he's not giving us anything. And it's pretty bad. If I'm saying he's worse than Bakayoko, it's pretty bad because Bakayoko, for me, has been one of the worst players that we've had at the club in years. So for Saul to get there is pretty frustrating. And then on the right side, Hudson-Odoi, I mean, he's not a defensive player like I said before, but I was really disappointed with his work rate today. I felt like he was pretty lazy on that right side, just not enough coming out of him, not enough energy and desire to win the ball, to do something on the ball. It just felt like he was sort of out there, almost like he didn't seem happy to be playing right wing back, and that's, for me, that's a sign of a mental issue. If he's gonna pout because he's not in the position he wants to play, if that's what's going on, I'm assuming based on his body language and how he was playing today, he didn't seem happy to be at right wing back to me. But that's not good enough. You need to play where the coach puts you. You need to play in whatever position the coach tells you to play because it's not about you, it's for the team. What does the team need? Well, we need your pace on the wings to take it down and create something. We need your pace to get up and down on the wings right now. And he wasn't doing that for us. He was just sort of out there, not really giving us much of an option. When we didn't have the ball, he wasn't really working hard to win it back. He was just sort of there for most of the game until he got subbed off. So, very disappointing from that sense because he's been playing well, but today was not a good example of what I like from Hudson-Odoi. Into the midfield. James in the midfield, not bad. I know he can play there. I know he's played there before. It might be an option to look at because we do have, we've got Hudson-Odoi typically or Aspilicueta that can play out on the right wing back. This might be an option we look at because we're really struggling with our midfielders right now. Jorginho kind of in and out in injuries and also giving away games right now. Loftus-Cheek, he's okay but not really fantastic in there. He does well in some games, but in other games he's very error-prone. Kovacic still out with injury. Conte still out with injury. And then aside from that, I mean, Mount and Barkley are your other two options in there. And Barkley I don't really consider an option, and he showed why today. And then Mount, I typically would rather have him up more forward because he provides such a good option up there with his movement. So this might be something to look at going forward because we do have so many issues with injuries in the midfield, and we don't have a whole lot of numbers for it. James sliding in and putting either Hudson-Odoi or Spilicueta or even Pulisic, I'll talk about him in a little bit. He didn't do too bad. He wasn't fantastic, but he was better than Hudson-Odoi today. So you do have options out wide, but you don't have a whole lot of options in the midfield. So James coming in might be a good one because he did do well today. The only problem I had with him was sometimes there were moments where he was kind of caught ball watching whenever, second ball would come out. We win the header, but then James isn't really ready to go put himself in the way. He's sort of waiting for the game to come to him. And we do need a bit more from him in there than normally what he gives out on the right wing. So, but overall he was okay. He was solid enough. Barkley. One of the reasons why people keep saying, "Oh, he's having a comeback at Chelsea. He's doing great," is because he's a man of the moment. He has that brilliant moment, the brilliant corner that just sets up for a great goal. That brilliant crossfield ball in his first game back that sets up for Spilicueta to cross it to Werner. Those brilliant moments. Everybody's just like, Barkley's amazing. Barkley's having a comeback. He's ready to play. Do people just watch the highlights? Because that's all he does. He's the man of the highlight reel. That's all Barkley is. He has special ability. But there's more to the game than just putting in a good ball. Having a good shot, putting in a good cross. You've got to do more than that, especially if you're one of the two midfielders in this formation. If you're one of those two, you've got to be on. You've got to be turned on. You've got to be constantly busting it, constantly putting in challenges, working to win the ball back. You got to be providing options whenever we win it back. You got to be moving up and down the field, box to box. No, that's not Barkley. Barkley is hey, I'm in space, pass it to me. Okay, you finally passed it to me. All right, now I'll do something cool with it. That's all he's got. And that's what he did so well at Everton, at Villa last year originally, when he was the man that could just say, hey, just give it to me. And he doesn't have to do any work outside of that. He looks good. That's why Grealish looked good at Villa, because he's that type of player too. But you ask them to do anything else outside of those moments when they're on the ball, and they got nothing. And again, today showed why Barkley is not good enough. He needs to go to a team like Villa. He needs to go to a team where he can be the main focal point of the attack. Because that's all he has to do is just get on the ball and make something happen. But in a team like this, in a team where we need everybody to be working together, everybody to be making runs for each other, even if they don't get the ball, everybody to be working hard to win the ball back. In a team like this, he's going to suffer, and he's been suffering. I don't care that he's made some good assists, made some good crosses, had a couple good shots. I don't care about all of that. What I care about is he going to work hard for the team? And in my opinion, I don't think he is. I don't think he does. He did not today. So, yeah, just another bad performance from him, and another example of why I don't want him in the team. Mount was probably one of our bright sparks today. He was not the best player on the pitch, but he was trying to make stuff happen. The problem for him was he didn't have a whole lot near him. Werner was making some good runs, but Lukaku was not providing anything. And then, of course, he's got Barkley as well for help, and that just doesn't really help him out. So, he still works hard, but I do think he does have a little bit more work to do before he's back up to the standard that I've seen him play at before. But today was a good performance, but it wasn't great. It wasn't the Mount that I'm used to seeing, I guess. But he worked hard at least, and that's something that a lot of people today were not doing. So there's that at least. But yeah, going up to the front line though, Lukaku, I'm done with him, I think. I don't like watching him. I don't like watching him walk around. I don't like watching whenever a player trying to do something on the ball, waiting for a striker to be ready and make a run for him, and then they have the shot and it deflects to where Lukaku should be, but he's still walking around the box because he's just disappointed that he didn't get that ball played into him. And then the shot comes in deflected. He should have been there, and he raises his arms at whoever took the shot because he's like, pass it to me. Pass it to me. I know I could have gotten that, but pass it to me. And it's just, he's a prima donna, is what he is. And I don't want a player like that. I don't want a Murata. I don't want a, being a little harsh, but Torres. Those players that they make that one run, and if they don't get it, they're pouting. They have that shot. If it doesn't come off well, they're pouting. If they're not playing well, they're pouting. Werner, if he's not playing well, guess what he's doing? He's trying to make himself play better. He's trying to bust it so he can get the ball back and try to make something happen. Do you see Lukaku doing that? No. Of course not. Because that's not the type of player he is. He's the player that you send the ball to him, you hit a good cross, you put it right on his head, because if it's not right on his head, guess what? He's not changing his run to get there. And that's all he does. And we don't need a striker like that. That's not why we won the Champions League last season. We won the Champions League because we had players that were going to bust it all game. We had Werner, who was going to bust it all game. Havertz was willing to bust it all game. We didn't have a prima donna striker up there that's just like, yeah, I'll wait for you guys to win the ball back and then just give it to me, all right? Just send it to me. I'll make my run. You better put it right in my path, though, because you really think I'm going to check my run to go get your bad ball? Please. So I'm in my opinion, I'm done with Lukaku. I do not want to see him at the club anymore. Honestly, I just think back to watching Abraham play and watching how whenever he wasn't playing well, he was at least working hard to give something. It wasn't quite working for him. He wasn't quite getting on the end of those crosses, or his shots weren't quite coming off. He's still working hard. He's still trying to make something happen. He'd get pissed off and disappointed too, just like Lukaku does, but where Lukaku just starts walking around the box, Abraham would be like, all right, let's go win the ball back. All right, I want to do this. I want to win this ball back so I can go score. So that's where I am with Lukaku right now. I don't want to see him play. I prefer to see Werner up there, as the sole striker with whoever, whether it's Mount or Havertz or Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, whoever's behind him. I want to see Werner making those runs and putting pressure on the defense, because that is being more dangerous than whatever Lukaku's doing. And then we get on to, I guess I already talked about Werner a little bit, but yeah, I'll continue to talk about him because today is a good example of what he brings to the team. And he got goals as well. So it's always a nice thing for him because he's always a player that works hard and you want to see him do well. And so whenever he misses those chances or whenever he doesn't score, everybody's just like, oh, Werner's the worst. Werner's a terrible striker. You can't play him. Just get rid of him. And then you got games like today where he's the only one working out of those front two. And this is why he's useful. This is what he brings, even when he's not scoring. This is the type of player he is. And it's so beneficial to the team to give a break. Sorry, words are not coming to me right now. Basically give a break to the defense from all the pressure. A player that will, the ball's over there, that's not where I am. I'm going to put myself over there. I'm going to bring myself over to where the ball is, so that way we can try to make something happen. That way I can try to maybe force the defender into a mistake or just make sure that they don't have time to send in a great ball that puts our defense under immediate pressure again. So that's what he brings. And today he was a little bit more left because Lukaku was our center man and he was more pushed out there and taking on that. But honestly, I'd love to see him just in the center and just back and forth, busting it, trying to make something happen. That's the type of player I'd rather see in our team right now. As far as the subs that came on, the first two were, I'm trying to remember now. Ziyech came on for, I think, Barkley and pushed Mount deeper. And then I think Pulisic came on for Hudson-Odoi. Ziyech, I don't really remember much from him. I remember a couple moments here and there where he'd do something a little clever to get out of some pressure in the middle of the field. But overall, he wasn't quite the game changer that we really needed at that time. We needed somebody with a bit more calmness and somebody who's going to keep possession a bit more. And Ziyech's not one of those players. He's a player for fantastic, crosses, but it doesn't always come off. But it means you're going to lose possession one way or another. Either great cross that leads to a goal and the other team has it, or terrible cross that leads to the other team getting it and coming back at us. So he's not really a calm presence in the midfield, which is kind of what we needed at that point. And then Pulisic was just, again, Hudson-Odoi wasn't performing, so Pulisic comes on, and he did okay out there. I don't think that's his best position. and I think he's still kind of coming back into fitness. There are a couple times where he looked like he might have been hobbling a little bit, so I don't know if his injury is acting up again or not. I'd hate if it was, because he's a player that just cannot get rid of that injury. I think it's his hamstring. So it's just, I don't know. But yeah, overall though, based on today's performances, I'd rather have Hudson or Pulisic in there rather than Hudson-Odoi, because I feel like he at least worked a bit harder than Hudson-Odoi did. Man, I don't have much time left. Havertz and Alonso were the other two to come on. Havertz came on for Lukaku, and I don't know, didn't really see much from him either. Didn't really feel like he changed much up front for us. And Alonso added a little bit more than Saul, but to be honest, we needed a more defensive presence on that left side because, again, Sarr is over there. So we needed a left wing back that could come in and do the defensive side of things. And Alonso's not that player, so it didn't really change much as far as our defending was concerned. But it did provide at least a player that was going to give us a little bit more going forward, because Alonso's better on the ball than Saul is. But all in all, I mean, it's another disappointing performance and another disappointing result. We're now almost probably, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we're basically going to have to get lucky with the draw in the round of 16, because we're in a terrible position now. And we didn't have to be there. This was set up when we beat Juve 4-0. That was our ticket to say, hey, this is our group now. We did our job. Now we just need to go and finish it out. And we didn't do it. We went in. Tuchel put in a terrible lineup. Even though we're missing players through injury, we're not this hard off that we have to rely on players like Sarr and Saul and Barkley. We still have options. It's just he wanted to make some rotations. And yeah, that's great for legs, but this is a game we needed to win. And we didn't get that done. And now we're going into the weekend, probably a lot of dropped heads and a lot of disappointed faces on the field because we're frustrated with what happened. And yeah, now here we are. Second place in the group. Good job, Tuchel. So I'm not calling for him out. I do think he should be fined for his decisions today, but yeah, there's a lot of questions he needs to answer over the next couple games, so we'll see what happens. But that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know what we can talk about and discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.